The following podcast contains bizarre theories, strange facts, and some out-of-this-world opinions. Listener discretion is advised, especially if you trust the government.
Conspiracy.
Welcome back, conspiracy lovers, to the second episode of Conspiracy, the show where no story is too strange, no theory too far-fetched, and no one is safe from our deep dives into the unknown. I'm Ash, your host, your guide into the world of conspiracies, and occasional devil's advocate. Last week we touched on the moon landing hoax. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you haven't listened to that yet, you can pause this one right now, just go back. It's our very first episode, so you'll be able to get a feel for what conspiracy is all about. Before we get started with today's episode of Conspiracy, I'd like to mention that a new episode of Conspiracy releases every Wednesday. However, as next Wednesday will be Christmas Day, and many of you will be spending time with family or have something going on, probably don't want to hear my voice on that day, so I'm not going to release an episode next week, but I will be releasing 2 episodes on Wednesday, the 1st of January, 2025. Can you believe it's almost 2025? And I know that most of you will probably be hungover on New Year's Day, myself included, so I'm going to try and make sure that the episodes are as hangover friendly as possible for your sake and mine. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know, no episode next week, but 2 episodes releasing the following Wednesday, New Year's Day. Right, so let's jump into today's topic. It's not about outer space, government cover-ups, or even alien moon bases, though don't worry, those will be back. Instead, we're looking at something closer to home, closer to your wallet, and brace yourselves, possibly closer to total global domination. Yep, we're zooming in on a name whispered in the darkest corners of the internet, BlackRock. It's not a James Bond villain, it's not an energy drink, but a company so massive, so mysterious, and so deeply entwined with world economies that some people believe it doesn't just play the game, it is the game. If you've never heard of them, don't worry, BlackRock likes it that way. They're like the secret billionaires in Monopoly, quiet, loaded, and always buying up properties when you're not looking. But who are they, and what's the truth? Why do some people think they control everything? And most importantly, are they shadowy overlords controlling us like sim characters, or just really good at making money? Let's dive in. Okay, let's give you some background on BlackRock, what you can find online. This is how they present themselves, right? BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, holding a mind-boggling $10 trillion in assets under management. 10 trillion. That is wild. That's more money than the GDP of every country except maybe the US and China. But honestly, just give them a few years. So for those who don't know, an asset management firm like BlackRock manages money on behalf of individuals, institutions, and governments. Think of them as a kind of high-powered financial middleman. You give them your money, and they decide where to invest it and hopefully make some more. BlackRock markets itself as a force for financial stability and growth, but their vast reach and quiet dominance makes people nervous. They're not just about managing your retirement fund, they're advising governments, building the AI brains of the financial world, and influencing corporate strategies globally. So what does BlackRock do with all of that money? They invest in everything. Tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, Google, they're in. Pharmaceutical companies, oil giants, mainstream media, you name it. BlackRock owns a slice. So you might be thinking, what is the conspiracy then? They just own a lot of shit. Well, some people say BlackRock's investments aren't just about making money, they're about influence. And because BlackRock owns significant shares in nearly every major corporation, this gives them that incredible voting power at the shareholder meetings, where they can push for policies that align with their vision. And that might sound great for the planet, right? But some say this power allows them to influence everything from corporate decisions to global policies. When you own enough of a company, or enough companies, you can start making the decisions. Decisions that ripple across industries, governments, and even your local coffee shop. Yes, Karen, your oat milk surcharge could absolutely be BlackRock's fault, so you might want to listen. But let's get serious for just a second and point out the fact that when you control that much of the economy, It's not hard to see why people might think you're pulling the strings behind the curtain, especially when BlackRock has a super secret weapon called Aladdin. Arabian Night. No, enter Aladdin, BlackRock's AI-driven investment platform. If you've never heard of it, I'd like to say don't worry, but you probably should start worrying, because think of it as a financial oracle that processes trillions, yeah, trillions of data points to guide their investment decisions. On paper, just a really advanced tool. But in the conspiracy world, of course, it's so much more. So here's the theory. Aladdin doesn't just analyze markets, it controls them. It predicts trends, sure, but what if it also creates them? Think about it. An algorithm so powerful it could nudge entire economies. Want housing prices to skyrocket? Aladdin's got you. If you need an industry to go boom or bust, yep, Aladdin's got that too. And here's where it gets even wilder. So, some theorists believe Aladdin is self-aware. Yep, we're talking Skynet vibes right now. If that's true, then who is really running BlackRock? Is it the executives? Or is it the AI that might secretly be building a digital empire while we're busy arguing about avocado prices and stuff like that? Like, we're so small fish in the grand scheme of all of these things. Like, who knew they had this AI that could possibly be self-aware called Aladdin? Only because I went down the rabbit hole and I started to do some research that I find out that this even exists. And that's exactly how BlackRock wants this to go, right? So yeah, whilst we're all kind of complaining amongst each other, this is probably the machine that's making it all happen. And if you've ever seen the film Aladdin, the Disney film, you know what he's got, right? He's got a magic carpet which flies, can go anywhere in the world at any point, and also has a genie who grants him wishes. I wonder why possibly one of the most powerful tools in the world right now in terms of investments and control is called Aladdin. Maybe because it's everywhere all at once. Maybe it's because whatever BlackRock wishes to come true, it comes true. They just rub the lamp. They just rub the lamp. Hello, Aladdin. AI. World domination. Start a worldwide crisis. So then we can buy everything at a really cheap price and have more control over the world and the governments. If that is true, and this Aladdin AI tool is self-aware and can have that much impact on the world, my God. Wow. It's literally a horror film. It's the Terminator. Like, that is what's happening right in front of our eyes through a company called BlackRock. And you know, not many people talk about BlackRock. Probably because no one's as stupid as I am to talk about them. But here we are. Took out a life insurance plan before dropping the episode, don't worry. But also, a lot of people have never actually heard of BlackRock and the amount of influence they do have. And the amount of investments and the amount of shares they have in so many companies. They basically own the major corporations, the mainstream media. Anything you're being fed is coming through them. And if that's all coming through this AI, sentient, self-aware Aladdin, what the fuck? But I do feel compelled to point out the fact that BlackRock's Aladdin tool might sound like a financial supervillain in the making, but at its core, Aladdin is just a very advanced risk management and data analysis system, right? Its purpose is to help investors, including pensions, governments, and individuals, make informed decisions by analyzing massive amounts of financial data. So that's just important to kind of give that counter there, because many financial institutions use similar tools for portfolio management. Aladdin is just a bit more comprehensive, let's say. And its influence does come from the sheer size of BlackRock's operations, not because it's inherently malicious. So we're not quite at Skynet just yet, I don't think. But a tool this powerful in the hands of a single entity is always going to raise eyebrows and questions. And hey, I mean, maybe it's not the AI we should be afraid of. Maybe it's the people that program it. Just saying. Damn, and that's just the first conspiracy today. Aladdin is just the first one, so time to crank up the drama. Another popular theory is that BlackRock isn't just a company. It's a key player in a global elite plan for a one world government. Or should I say the term that's sure to send chills down your spine, the New World Order. For those unfamiliar, the New World Order, or NWO as the cool kids call it, is the idea of a secret global elite working towards a unified one world government. And wouldn't you know it, BlackRock is often named as a key player in this grand, shadowy plan. And I mean, the term New World Order has been floating around since, it's got to be the 90s. I think maybe even 1990. It was really early in the 90s when Ralph Epperson published the book The New World Order, which dives into the sinister meanings behind all of the symbols on the Great American Seal, which is a fantastic read. If you've never read that, you can actually find that on Amazon. Ralph Epperson, The New World Order. Very interesting read, and dives into much more detail about what the New World Order is. Or you can wait for a few weeks because I'm actually releasing my own episode about the New World Order. So I'll be doing a deep dive into everything, the history, the conspiracies, the drama. I'm going to cover absolutely everything. So if you can wait a few weeks, you'll be able to catch my episode on that. But in terms of BlackRock, the theory goes like this, right? So by consolidating control over economies, resources, and even political influence, BlackRock are laying the groundwork for a world where a few powerful entities call all the shots. And if you're asking, like, what's the drama with that? Well, we're not just talking about stock markets and investments here. We're talking about societal structures, laws, and the very freedoms we take for granted. So it has huge implications when a company like this has so much power over the world. And here's why people associate BlackRock even more with the NWO. It's because some believe that BlackRock's ESG initiative, so that's their environmental, social, and governance initiative, is just a cover. They're a way to push companies into compliance with their vision of the future while looking like heroes for saving the planet. So, for example, I'll dive into two of their initiatives that cause a bit of a stir, right? So the first one is they are pushing companies to achieve net zero emissions. BlackRock has been a very vocal advocate for companies to transition towards net zero carbon emissions by 2050. They've used their significant influence as a shareholder to pressure companies in high emission industries like oil and gas to adopt cleaner technologies and align with climate goals. So here's why that is controversial to some. So critics argue that this oversteps the boundaries of a financial institution's role, effectively making BlackRock a policymaker without accountability. Then you've got the traditional energy advocates who claim this undermines energy security and costs jobs, particularly in fossil fuel dependent regions. And then you've got others who believe BlackRock's focus on climate initiatives is hypocritical, as they still invest heavily in oil, gas, and coal companies themselves. Now, I get it. Transitioning to cleaner energy is important, of course, but isn't it like asking a fish to start running marathons? Like, sure, it's a noble goal, but how exactly do we get there? And this whole push for net zero makes me think about how humans love to fix problems we created with more problems. Like, take the oceans, we fill them with plastic, and now some genius out there is like, let's clean it up with robots. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for robot cleaners. More the merrier, honestly. But at what point do those robots get smart enough to ask, wait, why am I cleaning up after your human mess? I'm a robot, I don't make mess. And then you fast forward a few decades and we've got sentient rubbish robots unionising or something, demanding better wages and ocean rights. Don't know. Honestly, it just feels like every solution that we come up with, it just creates a whole nother chapter of problems. So instead of thriving for net zero, maybe we should just go for like problem neutral, because at this point, the net zero solution probably is going to need another solution on top of that in the future. So I can see why some people might think that net zero is actually just an agenda being pushed and is not really for the earth. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, let's move on to the second one that we're going to dive into. Another one is the diversity and inclusion mandate. BlackRock has pushed for greater diversity on corporate boards, encouraging companies to improve gender and racial representation. They threaten to vote against board members at companies that fail to demonstrate progress on diversity metrics. Right. To me, it's not a bad thing. But To others, this is why it's controversial. Some see this as woke capitalism, arguing that BlackRock is prioritizing social agendas over shareholder values. Others worry about the practical challenges, particularly for smaller or international companies that may not have access to diverse candidate pools. And there's also some criticism that such mandates can come across as performative if the outcomes are unaligned with broader systematic changes. And I have to bring it up because every time we talk about diversity, it does make me think of how the idea of diversity can sometimes get tangled up in corporate speak, like how companies will often use terms like empowerment, buzzwords that sound really good but mostly miss the mark, like those trendy coffee shops that advertise locally sourced, organic, fair trade coffee, then serve it in a plastic cup with a side of environmentally conscious single-use straws, which drive me insane, by the way. Elon Musk is flying to space every other week and I've got to use a wet, soggy straw to protect the Earth. Yeah, right. I mean, you got to wonder if anyone's really living these values or if they just found like a perfect Instagram filter just to look good. Sure, we are definitely making some progress, but we've got to ask, are companies just hitting that checkbox or are we building an actual meaningful change? Because in my opinion, a diverse board shouldn't feel like a tick on a to-do list. It should feel like a fresh perspective, like a company suddenly realizing that the same 5 people in charge for decades might not be the best representation of their customers right now. But I could just be a little bit cynical. I am the type of person who reads the label 100% organic and then wonders if it means 100% of the ingredients or 100% of the marketing behind it. Oh, do you remember actually when McDonald's got done for using the term 100% beef on their marketing? Made everyone think that their burgers were 100% beef, but actually it was the company that was supplying them that was called 100% beef. It's so shady. Kind of love it, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, while these initiatives do aim to drive long-term sustainability and equity, they have sparked debates about the proper role of corporations in addressing societal and environmental issues. And as long as we keep pushing out the right press releases, I guess the planet is saved, right? The ESG movement, according to some, is not about saving the planet. It's about creating an infrastructure for a new world. Digital currencies, convenient tool for centralized control. Aladdin, maybe the perfect AI enforcer for a dystopian future. Now, I'd like to point out I'm not saying the NWO is real. I don't want to die today. I don't want to get sniped through my window. But let's just for a second imagine if it were. What if we are already living through the prologue of a global regime where trillion-dollar companies are the new emperors? It does make you question because now you're seeing individuals gaining so much power and money. It does make you question, are we truly in that run-up to a complete global change? I have no idea why this just came into my head, but a few years ago, I was at a networking event in London, right? The kind where people wear suits worth more than your car and say things like synergy and empowerment, like unironically. Yeah, one of them. Anyway, I met this guy, let's call him Ted. Ted works in finance, of course. Anyway, we got talking and Ted said something I will never forget, right? He said, the people you think run the world don't. It's the one you've never heard of that holds all the cards. And I remember at the time when he said that, I was just looking at him like, Ted, are you okay? Like, are you just being really dramatic here? Are you off your head on coke? Like, what's going on? But now I'm starting to wonder if Ted worked for BlackRock. I mean, and he was probably also coked up. I mean, finance guys. But now I'm questioning everything. Like, damn, I should have took his business card. I could have messaged him. He was handing out enough of them. Sauce Ted. Didn't mean to air your laundry there, mate. Anyway, I have digressed. So, we simply cannot discuss BlackRock without mentioning our favourite people. You guessed it, the government. Another theory suggests that BlackRock isn't just influencing governments, they're replacing them. During the 2008 financial crisis, BlackRock stepped in to advise governments on how to handle the mess. Can you believe that? That is wild. 2008, that's like what, 16 years ago? They, as a financial institution, were advising governments on what to do. So for those who don't know, the 2008 financial crisis was a global economic disaster that began with a collapse in the housing market and triggered a ripple effect across the world's financial systems. It did all start in the US from subprime mortgages, which were high-risk loans given to home buyers who couldn't actually afford them. So what happened was banks bundled these risky loans into mortgage-backed securities, or MBSs, which were sold to investors globally. So then these MBSs were thought to be low risk, but when housing prices start to decline and homeowners defaulted on their mortgages, the securities became worthless. Right, so as banks and financial institutions began to fail, panic spread across the globe. The global stock market plunged, and countries around the world fell into recession, with millions losing jobs, homes, and savings. But this crisis wasn't just confined to the US, right? Countries like Iceland, Ireland, Spain, they were all hit particularly hard. I remember seeing on the news, they suffered major banking collapses, required government interventions, but the effects were felt everywhere from Europe to Asia, as interconnected global markets struggled to stabilize. And in the end, the 2008 financial crisis exposed severe weaknesses in global financial systems, from risky lending practices to inadequate regulation. It actually reshaped the entire global economy and left a lasting impact on financial policies and practices to this day. So BlackRock stepping in to advise governments on that situation is crazy. Like, do you understand how wild that is? That is mental. That is a way of leveraging your power over governments, and have probably been doing that ever since. Because whilst they were helping the government, they were also buying up assets on the cheap. And fast forward to today, BlackRock is involved in almost every major economic decision worldwide. The power that gives to a business, a financial business, this world revolves around money. This world turns on money. So a financial institution stepping in to advise world governments on a financial global crisis is wild. So let's take a look at why that is completely controversial. So firstly, you've got the conflict of interest, right? So if BlackRock advises governments while holding stakes in the very companies that benefit from those policies, can you really trust their recommendations there? Secondly, you've got the erosion of sovereignty. So when governments rely too heavily on private entities like BlackRock, then they risk losing control over their own decision-making processes, right? And then you've got the shadowy overlord, right? So imagine a future where governments are no longer the top dogs, but the middle managers taking cues from trillion-dollar companies. You can see the problems there. So the implications of that are you'll start to see a shift in power dynamics. So the more governments rely on BlackRock for financial expertise, the more power shifts from public institutions to private corporations. So essentially, it's like hiring your landlord to fix your sink is the only way I could put it. So they might help you now, but don't be surprised if your rent goes up later, right? So next you've got the economic centralization of things. So BlackRock's reach means fewer hands are steering the global economy. And while that might sound efficient, it concentrates an unprecedented amount of power in one place. And that's just a recipe for influence without accountability. And then you've got the fact, if BlackRock's role keeps expanding, where do you draw the line between government and corporation? Are they partners, competitors? Or is BlackRock quietly positioned itself as the overarching new boss? But I guess one of the questions that we can kind of move to here, to not be so doom and gloom, is one of intent. So is BlackRock genuinely trying to stabilize global markets and promote long-term growth? Or are they planning the long game, consolidating power and waiting for the moment to, well, replace governments? Not saying it's happening. I'm also not saying it's happening. So let's face it, when a company has this much influence over economies and policies, it's hard not to wonder who's really in charge. Is it the government, or is it the people in the sleek BlackRock offices who don't even have to run for election? But let me know what you think about this. Do you think that financial institutions should have this much control? And if governments ever do become obsolete, do we start addressing Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, as Your Excellency? Talking of excellencies, no episode of Conspiracy is complete without a truly off-the-wall twist. So let's talk about the real whispers. BlackRock's alleged ties to, you guessed it, reptilian race. We're about to go full David Icke here and also bring up the mood a little bit. So here's the theory. The world's most powerful people aren't people at all. They are highly intelligent lizard beings disguised as humans, working behind the scenes to control everything from governments to Netflix algorithms. And you better believe it, BlackRock is on the short list of suspected lizard strongholds. Now you might be asking, why on earth would lizards want to run the world? Well, I'm not going to claim to be any type of lizard expert, right? But what I can assume is if I was going to be a lizard wanting to take over the world, is that I'd just be tired of living under rocks and eating bugs. You know, when everyone else is up there eating like really good food, living in nice penthouses, nice mansions, and I'm down here under a rock with all this power. Yeah, I'd want out as well. So that's one reason for sure. Also, maybe they just like the warmth of a nice corporate headquarters. Have you ever noticed, actually, how boardrooms or corporate office rooms, they're always boiling? So is that coincidence, or maybe lizard people do run these companies? That's why it's always so hot. Could be. But let's get to the fun part. How do you spot a lizard person? Do you have any idea? Well, apparently there are certain giveaways, and we're going to dive into them right now. Firstly, you'd have to look out for weird blinking patterns. If someone blinks sideways instead of up and down, you might want to run. Secondly, preference for heat lamps. If your boss keeps one on his desk, start asking some questions or run. Thirdly, uncanny wealth and influence. Maybe owning $10 trillion in assets seems like a pretty lizardy move. And for number 4, Joe Biden. Enough said. So I know to some theorists that this theory is actually a solid one, so I'm not going to shit on it too much. So to play devil's advocate, if there were lizard people running the world, wouldn't BlackRock be the perfect cover? Cold-blooded, calculated, and somehow everywhere at once. It's almost too perfect, actually. And honestly, I can't help but picture Larry Fink, BlackRock CEO, shedding his human skin after board meetings. Like, great meeting, everyone. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go bask under my heat lamp. Also, the name BlackRock. Doesn't that sound like the kind of place where you would find a secret reptilian lair? You know what? I can picture it now. I can picture it. Deep underground, full of heat lamps, piles and piles of gold coins. Bit like Smaug from The Hobbit, but with stock portfolios. That's how I imagine it. And if lizard people do run BlackRock, does that mean their AI system Aladdin is their dragon egg? Think about it. What better way for lizard overlords to consolidate power than by birthing a financial supercomputer that speaks fluent chaos? It would be the ultimate reptilian revenge on Earth. And I know it all sounds completely ridiculous, but would it be the weirdest thing happening right now? I mean, we do live in a world where people willingly, by choice, watch 4-hour Zack Snyder director cuts. Like, anything is possible. Anything is possible. And am I saying it's true? No. But let me ask you this. Have you ever seen BlackRock CEO Larry Fink and a Komodo dragon in the same room? Exactly. So if you see Larry Fink at your local pet store buying crickets, give me a call. We could jump back on another episode of BlackRock for sure. So what do you make of all of this? Is BlackRock secretly running the world, manipulating markets with AI, or my favorite theory, quietly plotting a lizard-led financial coup? Even if none of the conspiracies are true, the sheer possibility of them speaks volumes. When a company is this powerful, it's hard not to wonder why people think they're the ones playing chess, whilst we're playing Candy Crush, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. And speaking of banks, that reminds me actually. So I've been doing research on the BlackRock episode for the last couple of weeks. And last week I was stuck on hold with my bank, right? For 2 hours. Classic bank. But whilst I was waiting, I was actually thinking to myself, BlackRock probably owns this bank. Like, maybe if I just, I don't know, tell them that I'm doing an episode on them or buy some stocks, maybe I could just go up to number 1 in the queue. Like, I'm so done with this call. I'm so done with this fucking hold music. I'll buy stocks. Just get me to the front of the queue. Let me sort out my bank. And also, why are we waiting 2 hours for someone to pick up the phone at a bank? Like, we don't even need people now to answer the phone. Like, it's just AI. There's robots, AI, that can answer my call, get my problem solved. And even if we did use people, There's billions of people on the planet. Why am I waiting 2 hours for this phone to be picked up? Doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, rant over. The moral of that story is even when BlackRock isn't directly impacting your life, they somehow still feel like they are. Alright, conspiracy fans, if you didn't know anything about BlackRock, I hope you're a bit more informed now. And if you did, I hope you learned something new or had fun along the way. But I'd love to know, what's your take? Do you think BlackRock is pulling the strings behind the scenes? Is Aladdin secretly calling the shots? And most importantly, do you think lizard people prefer red ties or blue ties? You can hit me up on Instagram at Conspiracy. That's at Conspiracy, just the podcast name, or email me conspiracy@gmail.com. And who knows, your theory might inspire a future episode. Conspiracy. That's it for today's episode of Conspiracy, where weird is the new normal. We're not back next Wednesday because it's Christmas, but I will be dropping 2 episodes on Wednesday, the 1st of January 2025. So I hope you'll tune in. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And remember, the truth is out there.